We are back. You are chatting with John P. Today, I'm going to be talking about two very interesting stories, to say the least, that has happened to me when starting DelReyWatch.com here with my business partner, Federico from Federico Talks Watches. If you're familiar with us and what we do, we buy, sell, trade high-end watches and luxury watches on the internet. But when we were first starting out, we did some deals that were not totally on the internet. And I'm going to share with you crazy story, not only about how we were chased by two guys, but also how we thought we got a free Patek Philippe 5711 with an interesting little twist and turn. But please do not forget the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. I do appreciate it. So the first story, crazy story, free Patek 5711. Here's what happens. We sign up for Chrono 24. We were new to Chrono 24 within the first few weeks of us actually trading watches. So we were very fresh to pre-owned watches. We knew about watches with strong passion, some industry experience, but pre-owned is a whole different ball game, especially with strangers on the internet. So we sign up for Chrono 24, and we have a couple watches on there when we first started. And interestingly enough, someone messages us and they want us to get them a 5711. If you know the watch, and you probably do because it's very in demand, it's kind of gone through a bit of a phase where it's just been climbing in price. Now at this time, it was about 40K, a little bit under. And so we were honestly blown away. Zero feedback. Someone wants to buy this watch from us. They didn't know who we were. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. So right away we thought something's up here. This is a fraud. This is a scam. But they call us, everything seems fine. They wanted to give us a chance. They said, hey, they're buying a lot of watches and they kind of want to spread out their purchases. Didn't make any sense to us. It still doesn't, but they requested 5711. So we said, hey, the only way we're going to do this for you is if you bank wire us. Something to keep in mind, if you're doing transactions like this, bank wire only, it's the only way you can protect yourself. And so they bank wired us, however many $40-some thousand show up in our bank account. We didn't believe it. Still at that time, we had no reason to believe that this was legitimate. So I talked with the banker. It originated from the same bank that we bank with. So the bank knew 100% that the money was good. It was there. It was proven. So we said, wow, well, now it's time to get that 5711. So it took some time, about a week or two, but we got the 5711. Beautiful condition, much better than anything floating around out there today at reasonable prices. And I mean reasonable, relatively speaking, for where the market is. And so we get the watch, and it hasn't been a lot of time, right? A week and a half, and we're ready to send this guy his watch. We're excited. One of our first deals, certainly our biggest deal at that time. We're like, yeah, this is great. 5711, we're so proud of ourselves. And we call the guy, his phone is dead. We say,
no way, this was fraud.
We call the bank. The bank says, no, it's not fraud. The money's there. We try emailing him. No response. We have his name. We look him up. His phone number matches. We call the phone number. It's dead. We have no idea what to do. We have this watch. It's the hottest watch available. Blue dial, beautiful watch, huge deal, and the money. Nothing's happening. We consult with a lawyer because we waited about a week. We haven't heard anything from this person. The lawyer says, hey, listen, this is a very weird scenario. He did not even know what to tell us. He had no idea what we should do besides hold on to that watch. So that's what we did. We held on to the watch, and weeks and weeks and a month and 2 months and 4 months go by. The money's in our account and still no communication. The phone is dead. The email is dead. We tried to do a skip trace. We found his address. We tried mailing him. We tried everything. Registered letter. Everything comes back empty, blank. We have the watch and the money. We don't know what we're going to do. It just sits in the vault. Nothing happens. And then we get a now this is where it gets absolutely obscure. We get a strange phone call from a lady. And she says,
hey, listen, I think my husband bought some watches from you.
And, that's the case, right? We're selling watches predominantly to men. So you say, yeah, sure. Who's your husband? We work with a lot of guys. We sell basically toys for men. And the lady, says the person's name, but we ask to speak to him, and she can't actually procure him to put on the phone. So we go back and forth. Very nice lady. Her story checks out. We look her up. She's kind of a prominent figure in the industry that she's in. And so we want to believe her that, hey, her husband bought this watch, but here's the catch. She just wanted us to hold on to it until the story kind of shakes out. She's like, my husband bought this watch. I don't know how much he paid. I don't exactly even know what it is. I just see a bank wire. And so the story goes, as we ask more questions and we start talking with her over the next few weeks, it turns out, or so she says at least, that her
husband disappeared with a ton of watches, spent all of the family's money, and disappeared.
And she's trying to work through it, and she's being nice. So we say, hey, listen, it doesn't hurt us. We'll hold the watch. We'll hold the money. We'll figure out. And meanwhile, that Nautilus price is just climbing over the course of that whole period of time. And so, for us, there was really no downside. We just wanted to make sure that this ended the way that it should, with the watch in the right place and no one commits any fraud. And so it turns out that the story is that we get a call. And the call is this man, and he says,
listen, my wife is crazy, don't believe her.
And we're thinking, okay, we're getting played from both angles here. This is some type of elaborate scam. And he starts name dropping these other dealers he's bought watches from. So we call these dealers, and they've never heard of him. They're like, I've got no idea. That's fraud all day. And so we don't know what to do. This lady says, hey, this watch, send the funds back or send the watch. This other person says, send me the watch, but his address is different than the address we found on the skip trace. And ultimately, we had to get into a conference call with all of them. And it turns out that he did buy all these watches. There was some type of divorce going on. We had to verify, that the home was owned by this person and get all different forms of identification. And we contact the lawyer, and he pretty much says, hey, send this man who is proven to be the man, the watch, forget about, what the wife had said, because if there was any kind of divorce or, there was some dispute over the money, that's going to be his problem. And so we did send the Nautilus to this person, and he was so happy to get it. He was very happy. I don't know what happened with the wife, because she was honestly a very nice person, but the guy got the watch. He loved it. It increased in value in the time that we held it. And actually, because we were so helpful with him, he was willing to sell us a bunch of other watches that he actually did end up buying from other places, and he totally made his wife mad. I don't know if they're together or not today. It's not even any of my business, but what was my business was the original buyer was absolutely happy. He had that hot watch, and he did a bunch of business with us after then. Since then, things kind of went downhill from there, and, I haven't heard anything back from him again, but it goes to show that the watch business is fun and games most of the time, but sometimes if you don't know all the tips and tricks, especially early on, you could really get yourself into a bit of a bind. So, little plug here, that is why I created Watch Dealer 101, a program where I teach you to buy, sell, and trade watches just like we do here at DelReyWatch.com. And actually, when you finish the course, there's a link where you join this message group I've created for all of the students that complete the course, learning how to do it, how to trade, and we, or myself really, will be posting some wholesale watch deals in there, as well as other members of the group. So it's really my kind of idea to get a good solid group of people in there, and also, I have no problem recommending you to other people that you can work with as well. I really do enjoy that. So very cool course, link in the description below. Now next, I'm going to share with you also an even scarier story, because there was very little upside. This happened within a few days of starting our first business, that we get a call, right? It's always a call. We get a call from someone that seems like they were familiar with us, but really they saw our Google listing, so we couldn't really verify this. Now we're very hesitant. We don't do in-person transactions because it's just too risky, especially here in South Florida. But we were just starting out. Once again, didn't know all these tips and tricks that we know today. Literally days in the pre-owned industry. And by the way, H. Moser, Mayu on the wrist. Love this one. Very cool. So what happens was someone said that, hey, you got to come down. I'm down here in South Miami, about an hour and a half drive away from where we're at. So it's really deep in the thick of South Florida. And so we say, okay, well, what do you have? And they wanted to sell us a package of watches. And it all seemed legitimate. It seemed like it was going to be pretty lucrative. They had some pretty high-end pieces, and it seemed like they were a collector. So Federico and I, we get into the car, we drive down there, we're excited. First couple days in the business, we're like, yeah, like we got the Nautilus deal. No, this happened before the Nautilus deal, so we wouldn't have been excited about that. But we were just excited because this was the first deal that we had in that kind of buying capacity. And that's something you'll find when you trade watches. Always difficult to find more watches, especially when you're starting out. So we get down there, very lovely home, seems like a nice guy, but we're looking around, there's no furniture, there's a lot of itching and scratching on his body. We weren't sure what was going on with him. Something was a little bit off. Now, I'm not saying anything particular was going on, but something seemed very off with this individual, if you know what I mean. A lot of things were missing in the home. It didn't seem right. I start kind of feeling a little bit weird about the scenario. I whispered to Feder, I sent him a text message like, hey, let's get out of here. It doesn't seem right. This it's just a weird neighborhood. We're both fairly new to Miami. Something was wrong. And so we go through the watches very quickly. The person reassures us,
Oh, yeah, everything's fine. I'm just a collector. I'm moving out of this house. That's why there's nothing in here.
and so we're a little bit skeptical. We're freaking out, but nonetheless, the deal was, it seemed too good. We had to kind of stick through and play with it. Looking back, did we really have to do that? Never would do this now, but starting out, you don't know these things. So we're going through, looking at some very nice watches, some El Primeros, some Jaegers. I think there was an Omega or two. We're, some good watches, the stuff we like, the stuff we sell. And so we come to an agreement. The deal's really good. And, we write the guy a check. We give him the check. Everything's fine. And we're just like, let's get out of here before, something happens. We get jumped in the parking lot. So we're walking very quickly to the car. We're like, let's get out of here. Let's go back to the office. Remind you, we started with Federico, his channel. Like, you just never know people from the internet. It's just, you got to be cautious when dealing with luxury items. So we get in my car and we see these two guys, one of the guys being the guy we did the deal with, and they're running. I mean, they are booking it to our car, and I'm not sure what to do. Like, these guys are booking it. They look mad. They're waving their hands. And so I pop that car in reverse. I slam on the gas. I swear, I've never driven like this before. I slam on the gas and we rip out of there. We get out of the little complex they were in. We get on the highway. We're just absolutely booking it. We're like, these guys, I kid you not. We were looking behind. Actually, Federico was looking behind. It looked like they were following us in some type of car. And I was like, what is going on with these guys? So eventually, when we got onto the highway, we lost them. And we get out of there and we're like, what just happened? And we had the watches, we paid them. We were like, do we call the police? Had no idea. Remind you, sometimes in Miami, crazy stuff happens. Lots of crime down here. And this is something that goes through my head all the time. You hear about it and you see it on the news all the time. And so, we have the watches, we hold through them, we give them to our watchmaker, we check the serial numbers, all of that to make sure everything is legit, everything's fine. And then we get a call about a day later, and I still laugh about this today. We're just joking about it this morning. It turns out we get a call from the guy, and he's like, listen, you guys just busted out of the parking lot so quickly. And we're like, hey, yeah, what was going on? Why were you and this other guy we never even saw chasing us? He's like, oh, that was my neighbor, and I yelled for him. And basically, you guys just forgot to sign the check. And so, forgot to sign the check. Remember, we were just starting out and we were enamored with these watches, watch geeks, right? And we laugh about it. We forgot to sign the guy's check. So we told him, hey, void the check, rip it up, we'll send you a bank wire. Very sorry about that. And it was a very awkward situation after that because I think he knew that we thought something was up. We rip out of there. So very weird scenario. But once again, guys, this is stuff you learn all the time, especially early on getting into any business, let alone the watch industry. So do you have any crazy watch stories, any Craigslist encounters, watch related? I don't want to hear any of that naughty business. Leave in the comments below. Would love to hear it. Please do not forget to thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and Watch Dealer 101 in the link in the description below. Thanks, guys. You have been chatting with John P. Ciao.